On today's episode of This is Jax, I'm sitting down with Lori Anderson. We're going to talk about her story, how she went from an operations manager at San Francisco Airport to running nonprofits here in our great city of Jacksonville. I can't wait to dive into her story. It's going to be a good one. If this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe, turn on your notifications. Welcome to This is Jax. Thanks for listening. Welcome to This is Jax, a hyper-local podcast. We're going to do our best. We're going to bring on successful business owners, the people who drive the cities, share a lot about what makes our city so great. So you can be confident and comfortable. This is a city that you want to call home. Welcome to This is Jax. Lori Anderson, thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're busy because I see you around town. You're involved in a lot of things. And so I really appreciate you coming in here. You're instrumental and in some nonprofits in town, and we're going to talk about those for sure. But you're not from Jacksonville. You've been here for 15 years. You came from San Francisco, right?
Right.
Most recently before that. But I want to know a little bit about how did you end up in Jacksonville doing nonprofits? What's give us the backstory a little bit.
Okay. We don't have all day, so I'll give you the Evelyn Wood version. I was in the San Francisco Bay Area, grew up in San Mateo. My last job was I worked for my church in San Mateo, St. Bartholomew's. A priest who worked for Food for the Poor, which is an organization out here in Florida, came by and did his little spiel. And I went on a mission trip with him in April of 2007. And another gentleman was on this mission trip. And it was not sparks flew or whatever, but we think God put us together. And 2 years later, I moved to Florida. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It was a huge transition. Things are truly slower here.
Okay.
But that's a good thing. That's a really good thing because you get to know people and it's a very friendly place. And there's so many new and exciting things happening. And of course, we have the Jags.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful place to live. Took me a little while to get used to it. But I made friends fast. And since I was working with the church, I was exposed to nonprofits, although that was not my career. I was with United Airlines for 12 years as an operations manager in San Francisco Airport. And then after 9/11, I left because no one knew at the time what was going on with the airlines, but then ended up here and got a job offer with Mission House in Jacksonville Beach, the day facility. And then just recently, after 10 years of Mission House, I'm with Beaches Council on Aging.
Okay. And there's a lot to unpack there.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave us kind of the summary to start, but that's good. So let's go back a little bit. So you went on a mission trip and then you met, now this is your husband now.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Jay Anderson.
And he was from?
He was originally from Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania.
But he was in the Ponte Vedra Beach area.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so was there some long-term stuff, long distance relationship going on?
Delta Airlines was our best friend.
Okay.
And we flew back and forth maybe once a month. It was every other month, and then it became 1 month. And after the first year, we knew that this just wasn't a fleeting relationship. And so I made the decision to go ahead and move here. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And then you were operations manager, you said?
Yeah, United Airlines. It was my dream job to be work for an airlines, and everyone's like, "Oh, are you a flight attendant?" Because they assume all women are flight attendants. Sure. And I was my last job was I was an operations manager for the ramp. So those are the guys that put your bags in the belly of the airplane. And I was an operations manager, and I was the one that said thank you and please. But we got to drive our vans under the tails of the airplanes and make sure everything was being done efficiently and safely.
Yeah.
And I just absolutely loved it. But like I said, 9/11 happened, and that was a really, really, really bad day.
Yeah, I bet. So, and there's something special. There's something to be said about being on the flight line, right? I've spent a lot of time on the flight line, and I can't tell you the amount of times I've been there and thought like, oh man, I wish my dad was here to experience it, or my friend or so-and-so would really think this was really neat. And you're there doing it just kind of as a mundane thing. I used to feel that way as a little bit different, but in the dark of night, we go up on the aircraft carrier deck and there's props buzzing and jet engines everywhere. And you're like navigating around in the dark. And I was like, this is the craziest moment. And I know the operations on, at a big airport are, similar, a lot of moving parts going on. So that's definitely neat that you had your hand in that. And then after you moved to Florida, because you had some experience in the church world and in nonprofits, you got involved with Mission House, right? So Mission House, their mission statement, they exist to empower individuals affected by homelessness in the beaches area by providing food, clothing, medical care, and support services with an avenue to self-sufficiency, which is great. And I've been there, and we got to visit that place as Jax Chamber members, which was great. They're involved. What did your going from United Airlines to nonprofit to Mission House, what skills were you able to bring? Did anything transition over or carry over? How did that look?
Well, actually, a friend of my husband's called me and said, because I wasn't working when I was here, and he said, when you do work, what do you want to do? And that's when I told him, I'm interested in nonprofits, but I still like to run a business. And I even told my church that you got to run everything like a business, because if you don't, you're not going to be here tomorrow. And so the head general manager of United Airlines in San Francisco taught me tons of business stuff and finances. And I'm not a CPA, but all that good stuff. And then working on the ramp, safety was very important. So they said, well, I think we have someone you want to talk to. So I talked to one of the board members, and a month or so later, I was working for Mission House, which was hated by the community. And my very first interaction was with the chief of police, then Bruce Thomason, the mayor, and I'm so sorry, I'm drawing a blank on their names. And I had originally wanted to talk to the city manager, which was George at the time. I was only supposed to meet with George, and I met with these three guys. And it was really funny because they were like, you should close the doors, and everybody hates Mission House, and you shouldn't be there, and it's an eyesore to the community, which it really was. And I told them, okay, that's the past. Let's turn the page, and let me tell you what the future is going to be like. We're going to help get homeless individuals off the streets one at a time. And that's what we did. And I communicated with them our goals. I communicated with them our successes, and I earned their trust and their respect. And in 2014, we did a remodel where we went up and built a whole second level so that we could have more room because we were expanding our services. Mission House has a clinic as well as the homeless facility area. We're not an overnight shelter. And I talk like I'm part of the staff, but I am currently on the board, and I'll be rolling off this year. But it wasn't a job. It was truly near and dear to my heart. And I think the biggest thing I brought to the community was having people understand that this isn't a group of people. Each one of these folks is an individual with an individual problem and an individual story.
Right.
Many of them are educated and have a purpose. They just need someone to help them find that purpose.
That's great. Can we go a little bit deeper into, I'm curious, because you mentioned that, the community didn't like it, and for whatever reasons, and like you even agreed, it needed some work, right? And you were able to go in there. So when you met with those council members, the people who were, the three you just mentioned, I'm sorry, I didn't write down all their names, but you gave them.
I don't remember them anyways.
That's okay. Fine. And you said you went over your goals and you earned their trust. Was that a process of, did you walk away from that initial meeting with that, or did that take 6 months or a year? What kind of process did it look like? Did they give you a deadline? Get this place cleaned up or you're out of here. What is it?
No.
Okay.
I knew what needed to be done when I got the job. And I had in my head, little things that I knew I needed to do. The first thing was to hire good people.
Okay.
You've got to hire good people with good backgrounds and people who really know what they're doing. And most of all, care about what they do. It's difficult in the nonprofit world because, the old adage is, we don't pay what other people do. And that's changing.
Sure.
Because they work just as hard, if not harder. So I hired a lot of good people and talked about the goals. And, we did it together. They did the work. I just led them to the end result. So
yeah. How do you think the pace of the city? You mentioned that the city moves a little bit slower. How do you think the pace of the city contributed to the opportunities that you had, there, and then leading into your next role, which is where you're at currently, right? The BCOA, Beaches Council on Aging. Let's talk a little bit about kind of that. I guess my first question was, how did the city, to close out the Mission House segment of this, what roles did the city play in you getting that place up and running?
Again, communication to them was the key on what we wanted to do, what we wanted to accomplish, and of course, getting variances approved and stuff like that. Okay. You got to prove yourself. So that was very, very good. And they were very supportive. And so that's what made it work, was their help.
So for the listener out there who's thinking, maybe is this the right place to, if I have a passion, I have a heart for some type of nonprofit, would this be a good city to, absolutely launch it here?
Yes, definitely. Okay. Definitely.
That's great. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about Beaches Council on Aging. And what's your role there currently?
I'm the executive director.
Okay. All right. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. I actually was leaving Mission House after 10 years because I thought 10 years was good enough.
Okay.
I know there's people who stay in their job, but nonprofit is sometimes exhausting. So anyway, I was going to take a year off. And like I said, I believe God plans my life. So a gentleman who was currently in the position, but not technically an executive director, my job is, and I put this in quotes, part-time. So he said, hey, remember when I got this part-time gig and you said you wanted one? Well, do you want it? And I thought, okay, I think this is an opportunity I shouldn't pass up. And when I got into it, Beaches Council on Aging has been around for 49 years.
Wow.
And our main program is Dial-A-Ride.
Okay.
And we pick up seniors who cannot drive for health reasons or whatever reasons. And we take them anywhere they want to go, from Mayport all the way down through to Ponte Vedra Beach, over to Mayo Clinic and Cypress Village. But they get out and they're active. But when I got in, there weren't many consistencies since the organization was run by the board. They never had one person just focusing on the mission and what needed to be done. So when I got in, I spent the first 6 months doing Nonprofit 101 and getting policies and procedures and QuickBooks Online and all this exciting
What year was
stuff. That was in, 2020.
Okay, and I think we
pre-COVID.
talked off camera before. Remind me. I thought I remember you saying it was like you just mentioned QuickBooks and stuff. Was it still paper? Like they had paper? Okay. Yes. Or like in the database, like your clients, right? Yes. Or the people who are benefiting?
It was an Excel spreadsheet and there was 428 people on there. Wow. And we had to clean that up. And thank God for technology. They were scheduling people on the vans and we had 3 vehicles at the time and one actually died in my first year. So we had 2 wheelchair accessible vans and a car. Today we have 3 wheelchair accessible vehicles and a larger van. And the car is now kind of our emergency backup. But it's just grown tremendously. And again, it's just telling people what we do. And my biggest thing is I want to make sure that those who need the service know about us. So we do a lot of social media And people are like, yeah, but, seniors are not, tech savvy. They don't have to be. It's if their grandkid or their child or, adult child is saying, mom needs a ride or grandma needs a ride. We want to be able to pop up on their social media screens and let them know. And we are the easiest organization to get a ride from in the beaches area. You don't have to fill out forms and qualify. You just give us a call a few days before your appointment. And whether that's a hair appointment or a doctor's appointment, or you just want to go shopping, or you just want to see a friend, we do anything.
Okay.
And we'll send you a welcome packet. And then we just schedule your ride. We'll call you the day before and say when we're going to pick you up, and then take you door to door from your house to wherever you want to go. And then we'll pick you up and take you back home. And it's not only, we have about 8 to 10 dialysis patients that we take 3 times a week. And we're very proud that we're able to assist them in doing that. When I first got there, we were Monday through Friday, and dialysis patients are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Okay.
And I said, what do the poor people do on Saturday?
Yeah.
And nobody knew. So we started service on Saturday.
So you're 6 days a week now.
Yeah. So, but it's just, I've ridden the vans to give my drivers reviews and things, and I ride them periodically, but to see the gratitude in these people's faces. And one lovely lady who I just adore, Ava, we take her swimming to the Y twice a week, and she's 93.
Wow. And
she told me, Lori, without Dial-A-Ride, my life would be unbearable.
Yeah.
And to have someone say that, I mean, when we get there, we want to make sure that someone's going to take care of us, and we also do disabled adults. So for example, if you're living on your own, and you can't drive and you live in the beach and your doctor's in the beach, and say you had knee surgery and you can't drive and you're a temporary disabled adult, we'll take care of you too. Just give us a call.
That's really special.
Yeah.
And going back to that 93-year-old lady, I mean, I believe like one of the keys to longevity is to keep moving, keep being active.
Exactly.
So you're not only providing a quality life for her, you may be ensuring like extending her life, right? So this is huge. That's important. That's really special. And how do you feel this, again, going back to the city, how do you feel? Okay, so for instance, you use a lot of volunteers, right? Like you might be looking for volunteer drivers or something specifically, or is it not volunteer?
Yeah, our drivers are paid.
Okay.
Because that's how insurance kicks in.
Okay.
And we're going to be needing one more pretty soon. But we do have a volunteer opportunity that when COVID came about.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. When COVID came about, we were one of the last people who were checking in on our clients. The hospital was doing it and other nonprofits were doing it. And I'm like, we need to do this and make sure that our folks are okay because they were locked in. Well, we continue it till this day, even though it's not COVID anymore, because we get approximately 100 new people a year. Okay. So we have 100 new people who jump on our bandwagon, not to pun.
Yeah.
But
and you started you started with in 2020 with 400. And what was the number?
And then we cleaned up the list.
Then you cleaned up the list.
But we help approximately 236 unduplicated people throughout the year. And some come and go and some stick with us. And the number seems low, but it's because we're taking the dialysis patients 3 times a week. So that's still the same person, but you're taking them 3 times a week. So when you talk about rides,
you're giving out rides all the time.
Right. So the rides have increased this year over last year, 21%.
Okay.
And that's because we're getting the word out. And so we have another program called Beaches Senior Network, where if you need information about senior services, no matter what it is, if you need a ramp built because you just got a wheelchair, or your roof is not so great, or you need some gardening done, you call our number. We have 2 lines. We've really come up in the world. And our number is 904-246-1477, and you press 1 for a Dial-A-Ride ride, and you'll talk to Bob most likely. And then you press 2 and get Robin, and that's for our information on services. So what happens, Robin is also in charge of the volunteers. And what our volunteers do is they call our writers and try and establish a relationship. And maybe somebody doesn't want a call every week, but you'll check in with them every month. It's whatever's decided between the two of you. So we'll give you a list of names and you can check on those folks and just see how they're doing. And just to let them know that we care about
That's really nice.
you know, and we just want to know what's going on. There's so many people that do not have family, and we're kind of their only interaction sometimes when they come and get a ride.
Do you think that our city is a good place for a volunteer pool?
There's so many things to do. So many things. If not downtown, the beaches area, we have so many nonprofits here, and it's absolutely amazing. There's a thing called volunteermatch.com.
Okay.
And I actually get some volunteers from that.
Really?
And if someone's new to the area and you can whittle down to whatever area you want to volunteer in.
Yeah.
But I do recommend Mission House because Mission House has tons of stuff to do in various areas. And I do recommend us because you do it from your home and it's whenever you want to do it. But yeah.
Is there a age minimum for volunteering at Mission House?
It's usually 18 to work in the kitchen, and that's a law because of health reasons. And then I think you can be 12 or 13, but you have to come with a parent.
Right.
So,
sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I know there's a lot of folks who maybe, maybe they came from nothing growing up, or maybe, they were the beneficiary of any of these types of services.
Mm-hmm.
But as their life has improved and now they have their own kids and they want, their kids to be tied into those values and those belief systems, right? Now, for a lack of better words, not to be spoiled, right? So many of us do for our kids. It's just a natural thing where you're like, I want my kids to have life better than I had it. But I remember going, to the community center and eating off the foam plates, right? That's how I say it.
Exactly.
But my kids don't. And so unless I take them somewhere to help volunteer, they're not going to get that understanding of the world.
I had, when I was working at Mission House, a woman called me and she said, asked your questions, how old and what do you have to do? And she goes, I need to snap my teenager back into reality.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and you get service hours and anything that we would do, you could have service hours. We ask that people be 18 and over for us.
Okay.
Because you're working with a different population. Right. And it's amazing. You say the little ones, even if you're under 12 or 13, sometimes I think the kids get it more than we do. We had people, young kids, do lemonade stands and bring their $14.95 to donate to Mission House. And it was amazing. That
is nice.
Yeah. That's
great. We will be sure to link in the show notes. We'll have both the Beaches COA .org website as well as Mission House. Last thing about the Beaches Council on Aging, tell me a little bit. Now it's the end of August. It's really hot outside. By the time this episode comes out, you've got the Singer-Songwriter Showcase. You may have missed this year, but it's something that happens every year, right?
It does. This year, the 7th annual Singer-Songwriter is on September 5th in the evening from 6 to 9. So if this does air sometime before that, we welcome you to go online and buy a ticket. And if you're unable to come, we also have a raffle this year, which $25 for a ticket could get you a pizza oven or a Total Wine experience or a staycation or a diamond necklace.
Some great prizes
from
on
Miriam's Jewelry. Yes, we love Miriam's and Sawgrass and Total Wine. And so we're very excited this year. And we also have Mike Shackelford, who is a local. This is also a good place for live music, especially at the beach, to have some folks sing to you, not only with us, but in places around Jacksonville. So, yes, people need to move here because it's a great place to live.
So after being here for 15 years, what are what's like a hidden gem?
Oh, gosh.
What's one of your favorites?
I just think like the parks. I think there's parks within neighborhoods that you just have to wander through and realize, oh my gosh, this is here in the middle of our city.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And Jacksonville itself is making an effort to hook people together with the green line.
Yeah.
And get people to go out and experience the nature around here is really beautiful. We don't just have alligators.
That's right.
As my relatives think we do.
Do you think the slower pace of the city and the green space kind of go hand in? Do you think that's part of what leads to that, right?
Yes.
The decision making.
Right. Because you can't, and I'm talking to you, you can't always be working.
Yeah.
You have to take time and refresh yourself. Otherwise, I always tell people, take care of yourself, because then you won't be able to be there for others. Yeah. And we all have in our hearts to help other people, but we have to make sure that we are healthy and we maintain our spiritual and intellectual abilities so that we can go out and help other people.
That's great. What do you think the future holds for Lori Anderson?
Oh gosh, who knows? I'm always doing something.
Yeah.
I always talk about retiring, and I'm too young to retire, but I will always be doing something for someone. I
think the old idea of like, I'm going to retire and sit on my rocker in the front porch is gone. And I especially like in my generation, like when I look towards, I think most people, my generation share this ideal. I could be totally wrong, but at least for me, like the idea of retirement is not to stop, but to like kind of keep going. I don't know if that makes any sense. And it goes back to that thing I said, where I think once you stop moving, that's when, I saw like my grandpa Orvis, who he died in his late 80s, maybe early 90s. And really what happened was he fell off his boat at the boat ramp at like 86. And after he broke his hip, he was kind of old and grumpy and didn't do his physical therapy. And then that led to like, the end for him, a slow kind of last couple years. But up to that point, he's still putting his own boat in the water and everything. Right. And so like my life lesson there is like, keep doing those activities.
Exactly.
So I don't see you really, slowing down anytime soon, but when the day comes and you look back on it all, if your life was a story, and Jacksonville was a chapter in that book, what do you think a title for that book chapter would be?
Oh, gosh. I can only pray that it says something like, she made a difference.
Okay. I like it.
I hope so.
That's really good. I definitely think you're making a difference. I look at these organizations. I see you out in the community, and I got to say, your joy is like confection. It's like contagious. Okay. So that's great. I will have these websites linked on here, of course, but if somebody needed to get a hold of you or, wanted to know more about your story or the stuff you're involved in, what's the best way, one-stop shop to kind of try to get in touch with you?
To get in touch with me would be L. Anderson at beachesdialaride.org. I know that's long.
Yeah.
But
it's all right.
Emailing is probably the best way to get me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you again for taking time out of your day, coming here and share what you got going on. I really enjoyed it.
Great. Me too. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Awesome. And thanks for listening.